You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Credibility is still there, but the way we tell our story, it's now different. So I've shed that serious demeanor of a journalist, that heavy makeup on camera. I started to smile now on camera, which I couldn't do before. I started sharing my POVs too. So the tenets of journalism, the ethics, and the integrity of journalism is still intact. It's just that you're breaking down the barriers of that serious demeanor vibe and just talk to them like a friend. Because I think, Jin, I think isn't the crisis here, the problem here of journalism. It's not really technology. It's not really social media. It's not really AI, but the trust in journalism. So it has eroded. And how do we gain back that trust? Who do we trust more? In real life, IRL. It's our friends.
In an age dominated by platforms like TikTok, X, and Instagram, traditional journalism faces a critical challenge: connecting with new generations and rebuilding trust. Today, we dive into how journalists can effectively bridge this gap, drawing insights from independent journalist and content creator Jacque Manabat, who I met at the N3Con in Bangkok. We talk about the fundamental shift in perception, the identity of a journalist in the digital age. I'm Jyn Garcia, and you're listening to Teka Teka, powered by Puma Podcast.
Hi, I am Jacque Manabat, an independent journalist and a content creator. I now operate my own studio for post production and content conceptualization. Well, for journalists, we have been operating on a single word. We're just journalists, but I think we are more than that, because journalism is a function, not a profession. Especially nowadays, that information is all over. Anyone could do a TikTok content, and it's still information.
Jackie highlights a significant hurdle for the industry: the reluctance of journalists to embrace the term content creators.
It's because until now, journalism couldn't accept the fact that we could be called content creators, because from since day one, we've been creating content. It's just semantics. It's just another term for journalism. But I do understand that it is hard to identify ourselves into with another function or with another profession, which is content creators. Because if we look into the history, how influencers become popular, influencers are endorsing products. They're not keen into fact checking, and sometimes they are seen as to be producing content that is, if I may call it, garbage, brain rot, right? So it is contradicting to what we do as journalists, which is we create content because we want to inform, educate, and we want to hold those power accountable. So, my thought back then was, why, how come these influencers are reaching out to the audience that we were losing during the pandemic? How come they do have the attention? But us journalists who has the information, the training to verify information and gain information or access to information, doesn't have that attention. We have the credibility. Credibility has always been our currency. But why are the people, why are the audience listening and watching to these influencers?
Jackie says that while credibility has always been our currency, the challenge lies in her own epiphany that came during the pandemic, as she observed how TikTok drew people in.
And then something struck me. I think that was my epiphany. What if I could merge news and information together? Although it's not novelty, but the format that time isn't that popular. It's unconventional to be delivering the news in such an infotainment manner, and hearing it or listening or watching a news reporter, a journalist, serious reporter like me doing that kind of format.
She discovered a surprising level of engagement from the young generation, provided she could, quote, speak their language. Not English or Filipino, but their communication style.
But what I did with TikTok, using the language that the young generation are doing, using trends, is that I showed the presidential candidates coming in without telling them that Marcos, the candidate, did not attend. So that got a lot of engagements and there were a lot of debate. But what I valued there was is the healthy discourse there. It means that the young generation using this kind of language, this infotainment vertical language, is still interested in news. It's just that um, the journalists, the traditional journalists, like I was before, we are still in our high horses using language that they're no longer using. I don't want to call it archaic, but it's too formal and tiring to listen to. So I wanted to bridge that journalism and the language of content creation. And so far, it's working.
Maintaining credibility while adopting new communication styles is paramount. This approach, she believes, helps rebuild trust.
Staying credible shouldn't be a question. We should always stay credible because that is our currency. The only stark difference or the huge difference that I made starting with myself is that I stopped talking to the audience as if they were behind the camera that I'm talking to. I started talking to them as if they were my friend. Were not sorry. I started talking to the audience as if they are my friend. And I want to share what I know because what I know is I have fact checked it, I have verified it, and I know how to tell the story to them. So you got me. So heavy makeup on camera. I started to smile now on camera, which I couldn't do before. I started sharing my POVs too. So the tenets of journalism, the ethics and the integrity of journalism is still intact. It's just that you're breaking down the barriers of that serious demeanor vibe and just talk to them like a friend. Because I think, yeah, Jin, I think the crisis here isn't the crisis here, the problem here of journalism, it's not really technology, it's not really social media, it's not really AI, but the trust in journalism. So it has eroded. And how do we gain back that trust? Who do we trust more? In real life, IRL, it's our friends. So how about we talk to like a friend and then we get back the trust?
Jackie's process for creating engaging content is rooted in listening to her audience. She emphasizes the importance of understanding the younger generation.
Yeah, I still think I'm still in the process of exploring and experimenting what works, and we know how volatile the algorithm of the social media are, diba? I'm not just catering to the TikTok users. I'm also catering to Facebook, to Instagram, to Reddit, and whatnot. So my thought process would be I start talking to the young generation. Sometimes my nieces as young as 5 or 6, and then I listen to them. I think that is one skill newsroom should learn now is to listen to their audience, their future audience. So I listen to them. What are their interests? What are their values? Especially the teenagers. How do you wish to see the world? What do you wish to see the world? And then I spend time, of course, a lot of time on social media just to understand their language and what's working for them. And then if I see a news story that I think would be valuable to their interests and would add something to their life, I merge that now. So I go first on social media, listening to their values, their interests, their goals, their aspirations.
Beyond content creation, Jackie also advocates for an entrepreneurial mindset in journalism. She posits that if journalists want to evolve and survive, they need to market their stories.
I've been also telling journalist friends about this, is that we no longer operate as a journalist. We should also think like an entrepreneur. Because if we think like an entrepreneur, we are selling the information, and we keep them, in our trust circle, and they will continue to subscribe to the information that we're giving them, which makes democracy alive. So if we want journalism to evolve and survive, we need to think like an entrepreneur. How do you market your stories? Do you market your stories in the traditional way, in the old manner? I don't think so. You market it using social media. You market it using the language that the young generation are using.
A crucial element of her philosophy is viewing content creators and influencers not as competitors, but as potential allies. It's about banding together to fight the larger enemy of disinformation.
Again, our content creators, the influencers, they are not our enemies here. They are not our competition. But the competition are those who are um producing disinformation, who are discrediting the media. So do we want to compete with them while we are in our ivory towers? Or how about we use their language and we use it against them? You see, influencers, content creators, they're not our enemies. How about we approach them and teach them how we do ways? And in that way, we gain back the trust of the audience.
Ultimately, the future of journalism hinges on its ability to evolve. Jackie also compares this evolution to the advent of television, where new technology empowers journalists to reach more audiences.
You always play the long game. One viral video won't make you, it might break you. So you play the long game. For future journalists, we want change, right? So if we change nothing, nothing will change. So take that risk, take that bold steps, be smarter, and always listen to your peers. And in that way, when you're able to make it into this world, you will also be able to pave the way for the next generation. And that's my mission now. Is paving the way for future storytellers and paving the way for the next generation.
That was today's episode of Teka Teka. I'm Jyn Garcia. This episode was engineered by Anthony Tobias. Jaemark Tordecilla is our editor at large. If you learned something from today's episode, why not share it with a friend or two? You could also follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more updates, we're also on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you for listening, and until next time.